Hey guys, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. I'm going to cut right to the point. Bead blasts suck. No one should be doing bead blast finish on a knife anymore. Bead blasts just suck and no one likes them. And if you comment below and you say, "Oh Gideon, I like bead blasts, they're the best thing that's ever happened to the knife world," I'm sorry, but I'm going to tell you that you're confused and should probably have your head examined. Probably gonna make some enemies over this video. Probably some powerful, dangerous enemies. From the elites in the knife world who perpetuate the spreading of bead blasts. And, though I know the risk is high, I have to speak my truth. So, I just want to say for all of you right now that I love you and I would never take my own life. So, if I turn up hanging from a tree somewhere, it wasn't me, okay? But, on to bead blasts. My first hatred of bead blasts really started with this knife here. The Civivi bow. Oh man, I hate this knife. I hate this knife so much. So, as a lot of you know, I live in New Mexico. And I split my time between the northern and southern parts of the state. In both locations, especially in the southern part of the state, humidity is not all that high. And sometimes I sweat when I have a knife in my pocket, but I've never really had an issue with rust in this area. If I'm in a wet environment, I make sure I clean my knife very thoroughly, such as if I'm working in the river. I will clean my knife very thoroughly afterwards. I make sure that, I give my knife a wipe down after I cut an apple or something. And then when I get home, I'll give it a look over and if I need to, oil it up. So this knife, if you guys remember from the review, rusted. I'm not sure if you can see the spots there up there. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but I tried to take those off with WD-40 and all kinds of stuff, trying to rub that rust off. And I actually did get a lot of it off, but focus up here, camera. Did get a lot of it off, but not all of it. And there's more down there on the blade, and yeah. This knife, I was not using this knife for anything difficult. I don't know why it rusted on me. And it bothered me for a long time, and I originally blamed it on Nitro V. I think I was wrong. I think it was the bead blast. I want to take a look at this knife. This is a Sin-Cut knife. This is the Sin-Cut Snap. I love this knife. 9CR steel. I took this hiking with me, and I used it to cut some apples for me and my friends. And after I got done, wiped it off on my shirt and stuff and stuck it in my pocket. Had a nice little hike. Actually, it wasn't even really a hike. It was more like just a walk. We were at a park. I didn't really work up a sweat. But lo and behold, I get home. And look at that. Look at that rust. Oh, and there's more there. It's disgustorous. More there and there. 9CR is a very, very stainless steel in my experience. It does not stain easily. It does not, and this is not even staining, this is rust. For a little bit of comparison, before I keep going on with my complaints with bead blasting, this is my Best Tech Paladin. You guys know how much I love this knife, and if you follow me on Instagram and stuff, you know that I have used and carried this knife in some pretty gnarly environments. I've taken it on hikes with me where I did sweat a lot. I've taken it, heck, I even took this on a couple of trips to the gym for some reason. I've taken this to work. I've worked in water with this. I've done food prep with this. I've cooked some steaks that I cut with this knife. And each time, I just wiped off the blade and dropped it back in my pocket and then gave it a better cleaning later, right? This is D2. This is D2. which is not a stainless steel. And it's held up just fine for me. In fact, 80% of the knives that I carry, I don't rust. I have never really had problems with a knife rusting, except for a couple of carbon steel blades. I've rusted a couple of carbon steel blades, but that's pretty easy to do. And even then, when I rust the carbon steel blade, quick little bit of WD-40 or EDCI or something, and clean it up, we're good. Sharpen the edge a little bit, we're fine. Every single knife I've ever rusted, every single pocket knife I've ever rusted, has been bead blasted. Let me bring out an interesting knife here. This is one that I kind of forgot I had. I reviewed this about a year ago. This is a 1095 carbon steel blade. I took this knife to work with me in the mountains, as you can tell from all the grit and grime in there. I used it when I was working in the river, in the irrigation ditches, cutting tarps. I used it in the rain. And then when I was done reviewing it, I threw it in its little box, and then I just kind of tossed it in my weird knife box and forgot about it for a long time. Well, I pulled it out, and there's one spot of rust right there. And it's not even deep rust either. That's a carbon steel blade, guys. Carbon steel. Another problem with bead blasts is they just do not hold up to use very well. Here's a knife that I reviewed a while ago. Civivi Lazar. Rest in peace, Elijah Isham. And this is a 10CR blade, which is very stainless and stuff. And this knife hasn't rusted, which is good. But this is also not a hard use knife, and so I did not use it very hard. I was just cutting paper and boxes with this. And that was enough to somehow scratch into this. I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for words for how bad this is, but it scratched that coating or bead blaster or whatever. Here's a knife that I love, Civivi Tainan. A couple things here. One, let's look at this. See all those lines running down the blade like that? You want to know how that happened? That was a sponge. I was using this, and I was cutting some fruits and veggies, testing this knife, got it dirty, of course, went to clean it, put a sponge across the blade, and it marked it like that on both sides. And then, a couple weeks, that was a little bit before I did the review, a little bit after I did the review on this knife, I went on a little bit of a road trip to Utah, and I was carrying this with me. And it was in my pocket during the car ride. And yeah, I got a little bit of swamp ass there in the car, going through Moab. You know, it was pretty hot. The air conditioning was trying its best, but kind of losing battle. And what do you guys think happened? Yeah, I sweated a little bit. See the rust there above the Syncut logo? This is 10CR steel, which is basically VG10, which is super, super stainless. I mean, not super, super stainless, but it's pretty stainless. You want to know the other knife I had in my pocket in addition to this one? My D2 CJRB Feldspar. We stopped at a gas station, I pulled both the knives out of my pocket, and yeah, I'd sweated. And there was a little, there was moisture on them. Wiped them off, dried them, made sure they were all okay. Went about my day. Next day, I noticed rust on this one, nothing on the Feldspar. D2 steel. So yeah, rust is an issue. These knives a bead blast takes tons of marks during use. Hey, wait, here's something I want to show off real quick. Talking about the rust. This is a 14C28N Civivi Riffle. That's a very stainless steel. I took this out and I used it in the garden. Rust spot almost immediately. I was cutting, and literally I was cutting, wiping off, cutting, wiping off. Came inside, disassembled the whole knife to clean it out, make sure everything was okay, and boom, a spot of rust. Of course, I mean, it's not a big spot of rust, but still. So yeah, just bead blasts don't really hold up to use. And I know everything I've shown so far has been from Civivi or Sincut, which is, the same brand. Not saying anything, but Civivi, Sincut, stop. They're pretty bad about it, but other companies do it too. Here's a knife I got in recently. This is a Kubi Drake. It has a bead blast too. I've only had this knife for a little bit, so obviously nothing's wrong yet. But look, does that look good? Does that bead blast even look good to you? Because it doesn't look good to me. Ugh. I prefer stone washes and satin finishes. If there's something like D2, if I see D2 that's bead blasted, I don't buy. Kubi is really bad at that. No, that's a turn off for me. If it's bead blasted D2, I don't even bother. Even if I love the design of the knife, I won't bother with bead blasted D2. But it doesn't even look good. I don't. Ugh. And something that I'm very mad about was I remember buying a couple of Civivis. Which one was it? Was it the bow or the riffle? I can't remember. But I bought a Civivi, and it said that it had a stonewashed blade. And it was a bead blast. Stonewash is not a bead blast. And now, if you look at their product descriptions on retailers, it does say bead blast. But for a long time, it said stonewash. And that made me mad because a bead blast is not a good stonewash. So, I don't know what the solution is here. I don't think companies are going to stop doing their bead blasts. But I hate bead blasts. I really, really hate bead blasts. And I know I was kind of goofing around at the beginning of the video, but if you like bead blasts, I really would be curious to hear down below what you think. Because I don't know, I just never had a good experience with them. If I have a bead blast on knife that I use a lot, like this one, it just takes a lot of wear. It looks terrible, and then it'll rust. The other thing about some bead blasts, like from Civivi, is like I was trying to clean a couple of knives, and it was like kind of like, I don't know if it was rubbing the bead blast off or just like discoloring it. Whatever it was gross and it looked awful and I hated it. Am I getting bitter? I think I'm getting bitter. I don't know. It just makes me sad. And I think we should all rise together and say, no more bead blasts! Blast it! Anyways, I guess that's all Wait a second, what the heck? There's someone in my yard. What the heck? Hey! Hey, who the hell are you?
I'm the Bead Blast Boogeyman. I control many large knife companies. My evil plan is to bead blast all knives to make them suck. It was all going so well until you started talking shit about bead blasts.
Yeah? So what?
I guess I'm going to have to come into your house, tie you down, and make you watch as I bead blast your knives.
Oh, really? You know what? Let's see how you like this blast, you androgynous bastard! I killed him. I killed the Bead Blast Boogeyman. All you knife companies are free. You're no longer under his control. Make the right decision.